Hey, Peter. Hey, Gordon.
Hello. Oh, there's your camera.
Hey, how's it going?
I realized no one could see me. Shall we give Ben a few more others? Okay, since we have the whole committee here, would you both like to get started? Or shall we wait a few minutes? I'd say get started. Okay, I see thumbs up. Great, well, welcome to the June Public Services and Environment Committee meeting. We have a couple items on the agenda this evening. The first is a presentation from the League of Women Voters DC on redistricting, titled Redistricting 101. And the second is a presentation on an art installation at the Line Hotel / Unity Park. And I don't know if a representative from the League is with us. I see a hand raised, so I think maybe it's Erica.
Hi there, I'm Erica. I'm with the League. I have our presentation up and ready to go. I should be able to share it shortly. I think Kathy should also be here. I can't tell though.
Yes, she's just being promoted to panelist leader. Thank you both so much for joining and for reaching out about this opportunity and offering to do this.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to hear and learn from your presentation.
All right, I will share my screen and I'll let Kathy introduce us and talk a little bit about the League and our efforts.
That'd be great.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for hosting this. The League of Women Voters, as you may know, is a nonpartisan grassroots organization. We just celebrated our 101st birthday. And our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. It used to sort of feel like that was doable. I don't know. After the last, after yesterday, I dackered, as they say. But we soldier on. It took a long time for suffrage to happen. It doesn't happen overnight. So we just pick ourselves up and keep going. Our strength, I believe, is really in our nonpartisanship, because they're, especially now, right? I don't remember ever, and I'm probably older than most of you, at least the faces that I can see. And I don't remember anything quite like this. I mean, even at the peak of the Vietnam War protests and the beginning of the women's movement, I don't know. So I think that's really key for the League, as hard a road it may be to take all the time. And our other strengths, which is something that really affects all of you on this call, and that is our nonpartisan online voter registration and candidate information, vote411.org. And you probably all got an email from us, and hopefully you all answered and filled it out. It is the only source for nonpartisan candidate information that goes all the way from your position on the ballot up to the presidential level. Or, I'll turn it upside down and say that, it's the only source of truly local candidate information. And that's true for any US address, which is totally remarkable. we're known for our educating voters because we never take a stand on a candidate or a party, but we do take a stand on issues, and we always prepare and study for that and come to a consensus about those issues. So one of the things that we've been working on nationally is people-powered fair maps. And Erica is on our board of trustees. She has been on this committee even before she was on the board. You know, we're lucky in DC in some ways, but particularly because we don't have to deal with partisan gerrymandering. You know, it's like, that's not our issue. So we're sort of, when the national program looks at people power fair maps, that's a lot of what they're doing. They're filing lawsuits, they're signing on as an amicus, they're setting up independent commissions, all of that. In DC, we have a commission from our council of sorts, and but we're not dealing with the gerrymandering issue. But we do want that the process to be completely open. I'll let Erica do her presentation, and then we can talk a little bit about timing, because I think that's really what's going to, it's where the rubber hits the road for us in DC, working with DC Council and the Board of Election. So let's get a little feel for what the basics are, and then I'll go over the timing challenges, shall I say. So I'll turn it over to Erica. I'm going to put myself back on mute.
Okay, I have skipped ahead. I don't know what's going on with my computer here, so please bear with me. I'm so sorry. Oh boy.
Hear it snoring. It sounds like my husband.
I don't know what's going on. Super embarrassing. I'm going to stay in the window, and I think it's a little bit easier to manage that way for some reason. So we will talk, as Kathy said, about some of the goals of the People-Powered Fair Maps effort in the DC context, because we are a pretty unique, we're in a unique situation compared to a lot of the other PPFM efforts. We'll also talk about how redistricting works in DC. Again, a pretty unusual situation, and it makes our city great. And then we will talk a little bit about the timing with the census delay, how that will impact redistricting efforts. And then we'll talk about some action items. So for how our efforts work. We are here in an educational capacity. We like doing a few different community events like this. We also talk about ranked choice voting and a few other types of issues. But the real central mission, or one of the real key components of how the League functions, relates to our educational efforts. So we're talking to community groups like this one about how the districting process works in DC, how they're redistricting. We're hoping to get other people involved in our efforts, and we have a demonstration for you of how you can get involved yourself, actually submit your own maps to DC government for consideration. So we're going to talk a little bit about communities of interest and how to preserve those communities of interest to make sure that their voices are heard. And you know, all of this goes to our overall goal of getting people more involved in the redistricting process and in local politics in general. So what is redistricting? Redistricting is the way in which our city is divided for representation purposes. So from every census, we get a bunch of data showing who lives where. And we use that data to draw these maps to improve our representation. because those maps are only available every 10 years, or the latest data is only available 10 years, every 10 years, we have redistricting happen every 10 years linked to that data drop. So the redistricting process was supposed to be well underway already this year. Redistricting data, however, has been held up because the census was held up due to COVID-19. So we'll talk a little bit more about the actual timeline that we're looking at now due to that delay. But that whole idea of redistricting is what really plays into how our wards are drawn, how the ANCs and single member districts are drawn, and overall, how our city looks when it comes to who we elect. So the redistricting process, as you can see, a few levels really impacts our wards and
Erica,
our
you're breaking up a little
SMCs and
bit.
ANCs. So we have 8 wards in the city, and those wards are supposed to be oh no, sorry. Net connections. Our wards are approximately equal in size, or at least they originally were, after the redistricting process with the last census. Now, because people are moving into DC, they're moving into different neighborhoods, moving across the city. Those districts or those wards are becoming slightly unequal in size. So they're supposed to be within about 5% of one another, or about a few thousand people. Demographic shifts, we are seeing some imbalances. So it's really important that we redistrict in a way that ensures equal populations between each ward, so everyone has equal representation on the city council. So each ward has ANC boundaries drawn within them, and we can see those here in this map. It's crazy, all the colors that we've used, but they can help you kind of see some of the most densely populated areas, because those are the really tiny little ANCs on the map, and then some of the less populated areas, which are the larger ones. So each of these ANCs are supposed to have about an equal number of residents, so that and ANCs have about an equal number of people to represent. So we have 40 total ANCs in the district. That has increased from 37. And ANCs are split up into multiple single member districts. So you have the ANC commissioner, and then you have single member districts within that. And there are 296, nearly 300 SMDs.
Hey, Erica, you if you turn off your
in
camera,
the district.
that might save on bandwidth.
So in theory, they should be equal, but sometimes they can vary between wards. There are so many single member districts that making everything standardized. Okay. Did that help?
Yes, we can hear you.
You still there, Erica?
It looks like
Yes,
she's
I'm
actually-
back.
Oh,
Sorry,
great.
I switched to a hotspot that I think is a little more stable. Okay, so I was leaving off on this slide. I wanted to give a little bit of historical.
Your, Erica, your shared screen disappeared, so just reshare. You should be able to do that.
I apologize. Okay.
We've got it.
Great, thank you. So this is a little bit of historical background on the way that ANCs were created. So these are some of the documents that actually established ANCs, and if you can see the date at the top, they are a fairly new phenomenon in DC's representation. You can also see that they were drawn by hand when they originally created, and you can see how the map has evolved over time. So just over the span of 10 years, you can see that there was some pretty major changes in the way that the district lines were drawn, meaning that people who lived in one area of a ward might have actually found themselves in a different area once redistricting happened. So we are anticipating some shifts in some of the ward lines as the new census data comes in, just because the population has shifted so much over the last 10 years. Let me go ahead and talk about some of the ways in which those boundaries are drawn, or the ward lines are drawn. So the key players in this are really the mayor, the Board of Elections and Ethics, and then different ward task forces. So these are people who have decision-making power, and they're able to determine where those new lines are going to be drawn. The reason I think we're doing this educational campaign is that people are actually encouraged in DC to submit their own versions of maps and inform the process. So when we look at the way data should be dropped in the coming months, we should also talk about the ways that we can get involved in ensure that people are being represented fairly. So it looks as though the census data will be coming out in September, which means we have a few months to gear up and start really thinking about what we value in the redistricting process. So we value making sure that our voices are heard, that people are represented equally and equitably. So being able to take the next couple of months and ensure that the maps that are produced meet those criteria is super important. So with the data coming out in September, we start getting into a real time crunch leading up to the next election. So having maps ready to go is even more important now, knowing that people are going to really be up against a clock when they're making their decisions about how maps should be drawn. I think when we talk about ways that you can get involved, again, we've talked about educating yourself, like through events like this, inviting the league if you'd like for us to be able to put on another educational event like this for a different group that you're in. You can also get involved with talking to ANCs that you know, and really doing your own work to make your own map. So if you are interested in doing your own map, we have a piece of software that I thought would be really fun to show this evening. It's from Tufts University's Tisch College, and it's from the MGGG project that they have there from the redistricting lab. So it's actually a combination of political science and math and a whole lot of fun. So I will take you over to Districtor. And the goal of Districtor is to let you draw your own maps. I'll go ahead and open the tool, and I'm going to do a short demo for you very, very quickly this evening. There are a lot of different resources that you can use, and you can hop into some of the how-tos, but I think this is one of those tools that's most fun if you're able to just jump in and give it a try yourself. So if we get into drawing districts or drawing communities, the definition, I think, is kind of interesting here. So when we talk about communities, what is a community? Well, usually a community has some sort of affinity. It's not only a geographical component, but it might also be a linguistic component or some sort of values or identity that these people tend to share. So this talks a little bit more in detail about how it works, but I think we should be able to jump in and see what kinds of options are open in the map. So in Districtor, as with many other mapping tools, you are given a few different ways in which you can work. So you can look at the population of different wards when you draw your maps based on race, based on voting age population and race, based on the age of an area, and then contiguity, which is something that's quite important when you're drawing a map because it keeps people from having to cross town to vote, or it allows the person who's representing an area of town to really be connected to that neighborhood. So they're not having to represent people from far, far away. So those were a couple of ways that you can evaluate your map. And you have a few different kinds of data that you can draw into your map. I'm just going to use the standard data that they have this evening, but there are a few that you can play with, and you can really start looking at different demographic identities among the residents of your various neighborhoods. But I've talked a lot. I think it's more fun to actually make a map happen. So as you see, you select your paintbrush, you select a color, and you start painting away. And you can see that your population begins to grow as you continue to drag your way across the map. This line is set up to give you your ideal population, or that goal that you're going to work to balance your map and make sure that the same number of people are represented in each district. So I've gone through, I'm getting closer and closer, and I'm drawing a district that I hope will get us to about the ideal population. So we're pretty close there. I can switch colors and then start drawing another map. Now you'll see that they do overlap. So if you want to get very detailed with it and really zoom in on an area, you can. But there are a lot of features here that you can use. So you can start evaluating how well you've done in meeting some of the goals that you might have set for yourself. Like, I really care about balanced racial representation if that's possible, but the way that I'm drawing my map, I don't know if it's going to happen. So if I look at my evaluation criteria and I look at population by race, it looks like there's a very strong Black community in my second district, but there's a really wide split in my first community. If I'm looking at giving power to certain communities within my mapping, then I need to make sure that they meet about 50% or more. So when I start trying to play with these different maps or the different possibilities with this map, I can start really taking into account, well, how many people of each community are present there? Am I packing so many people of one community into an area that they're not getting the full representation across the city that they should? Or am I diluting their power in a way so they're not actually hitting the 50% mark or even higher when they really probably could? So there are lots of ways that you can think about how to draw your map and make the most impact possible for the people or the communities that you're really wanting to ensure are heard in their districts and across the city. So I realize I've gone through this very quickly, but you can see a lot of the tools up here are pretty intuitive. You can paint, you can erase, you can select, and you can evaluate the work that you're doing to make sure that it's as equitable and representative as you like. I think that this tool is one possible way that you can help support the redistricting efforts in DC. And it's kind of a fun tool as well, just to get to know the city a bit more. So if you are hoping to participate in the redistricting process, or if you just want to know more about how the city looks, this data is currently populated with 2010 census data, but once the new data is out, it should be ready to go this September, they're saying. So once that's ready to go, you'll be comfortable with the tool, and you should be able to make a map using the latest numbers that we have. So I think that's all that I have for this little demonstration, but I'd like to give people some time to ask questions, or give Kathy a minute to also add anything that might be useful that I may have missed.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. This map is really kind of fun to use. And I will say, through the League of Women Voters, they had several demonstrations of different mapping tools. And several of them did not even have DC on that map. I mean, it just wasn't even available to do anything with. I went ballistic. I really had temper tantrums in front of the people from across our country, and the presenter of their tools. So when this districtor came along, I was so happy, because here we are. At least we're on the map. So we may not have voting representation in Congress, but at least District R gave us a tool that we could use. And you know, I think it would be helpful for people to play around with this map, so you'll be ready to go once the census data drops. The DC government will have a mapping tool available. I don't know how easy it is to use or whatever, but I think that getting your ducks in a row, prepared and competent in playing with the map will only serve you well when we get that other mapping tool from the district. So and maybe this is a little time, tell me, Erica, if it's not, to talk a little bit about the timing that we're working with our council.
Right. It looks like it's going to be a real crunch. I had kind of alluded to this earlier, but it still seems to be a bit up in the air. It looks like there's the potential to, well, unfortunately, have a primary election, have a new map, and then vote in another election after that? Or have they precluded that? That was something that they were discussing, and they're hoping to avoid.
Right. So I don't know if any of the ANC folks who were on the call were on Alyssa Silverman's roundtable. The initial data might hit as early as mid to late August, and the official release of redistricting data is due in September. So there may be a little bit of an earlier shot to get a handle on things. The council has 90 days, this committee of Anita Bonds, Christine Henderson, and Alyssa Silverman, who are all at-large council members, have 90 days to draw the board lines. So, you know, that gets us to December. The mayor will sign that into law in January. And then the council will start, this committee will start hearings about the ANC boundary determinations. And that's supposed to be for 90 days. I don't know whether, I think that's part of the code. And that gets us to early April of 22. Last time, 10 years ago, it took about 6 months or so from the task force reports till the lines were drawn. If that's the case, that would get us at September, which is very late. very, very late for actually your elections more than anything else. This ties into the precinct designs, because that's based, which it's a little bit confusing. They use a mapping, GIS mapping. There are now, as Erica mentioned, 40 ANCs, not quite 300 single member districts, and 144 precincts. And the precincts, as I understand it, are drawn by the voting, potential voter population in each area. So the first step is to draw the ward lines, then the ANCs, and then the single member districts. And then the Board of Election has to play around with doing their precincts. They go through a review process, and they adjust and make new precincts if they have to. And that is due by December 23rd. It's really critical for the Board of Election to have this all done so they can use it in the primary, which is in June. And the same map must be used for the primary and the general, because you can't have people, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious to people who run for office. You want to campaign to the same constituency, and certainly you have to have it set. So one of the conversations that came up at the roundtable, and one of the recommendations that the league has made, is to see if they can work on having the SMDs and the precincts kind of line up. So maybe 2 SMDs would equal a precinct, and to see if that might be possible, because it's less critical to have specific precincts if we continue having vote centers, because you don't have to go to your precinct specific vote center, precinct polling place to cast a vote. We could all go to Nat Stadium if we want, if they continue to do vote centers. And if there are drop boxes, then maybe which they have agreed, I'm pretty sure, to continue with vote by mail or vote at home balloting, they might be able to use what would have been precinct lines to look at for allocation of where they might put the drop box for the ballots. You can tell I'm sort of hesitating and thinking about how to word this. You've all dealt with the Board of Election. I hope you all had a good experience. But we know that they're not always easy to work with, and change is always hard. Change is hard for all of us, and it's particularly hard for agencies to really change, and to change relatively quickly. They managed to do it for this last election, to do the vote at home balloting, to get drop boxes, to set up vote centers. They did a remarkable job, really remarkable. Whether they can, also go fast and furiously between the time that the census data drops and the district council has done their part to then take that new information and run with it, I think is a question. So that's a little bit of the challenges that we'll, be dealing with and thinking about. And I think you all play a big role in that, and have the ability to involve all of your constituents, the neighborhoods in this conversation. So anyway, we'll have opportunity for more questions asked, but back to you, Erica.
Yeah, I think that's all that I had today. I wanted to point out, I think I forgot to mention, that you can save the map that you create. So even if the city has its own mapping tool, you can have a little bit of a head start. You can save your work and then submit it. You might even be able to get it to play nicely with the tool that the city makes, depending on what kind of data files they're using. So, you know, your work can actually go and make a real life impact. I think that's the most empowering message that we can get nowadays, right? So anyway, I think that's it for the tool for me and for the background discussion. Thank you, Kathy, for clearing up the timeline. I know it's the last that I heard, it was pretty messy, so they'll be under a crunch, but it is doable. We'll cross our fingers and then hope, you know.
I can't see any of the faces or anything anymore, but were any of you at the listening into the roundtable? I know there must have been somebody from our ward. I live in 1C404. So Megan is my SMD representative. No.
Yeah. And she's here, and I see a couple other commissioners nodding their heads too. So,
Good.
folks there.
Yeah, so when we're thinking of communities of interest, sometimes it's race, but it really may, and you may know better than I. Many of you might have more experience in this than I do. I've lived here just for 5 years, so it's not very long. But it may center around school, you know, areas where you draw from for which primary school you attend. That may be something that people really care about. It may be a faith, a connection to a particular church or place of worship that may be critical for certain neighborhoods. It may be, I think schools are probably the most, and of course, then you have to think about the natural boundaries like parks and rivers. In some areas, you know, major highways form, in a way, natural boundaries, and you have to figure that out vis-a-vis your map and keeping the variance between wards within that 5% range.
It's super interesting. Thank you both so much for sharing all of this. I had no idea we would have the opportunity to submit our own maps or even where to start to pull that. So this is really informative. I want to allow everyone else to ask some questions as well. And I know we were showing some of the options for exporting this. I had two quick things. One, what is the unit that we're looking at on this map right now when we're coloring in? Do you know that?
Census
This should
block.
be census blocks.
Okay. And second, when we have the opportunity to submit our own maps, but that first decision-making phase is about the ward lines. So would we submit maps just for that and then submit like an ANC map if we'd like later? Or is it all in one, do you know?
I think it's separate because there is a specific deadline to draw the ward lines. And then there's the next deadline is for the ANC boundaries. So, you know, it goes in chunks.
Okay, interesting, super interesting.
And, you know, at the roundtable, there was a lot of conversation from people who were testifying from the public, you know, and the major, I really came away with the idea that the major concern that people had was what their parking sticker would be. And I know, I mean, I get it, but I found it really frustrating, I have to say.
Maybe it can be a motivating factor to get people more interested in
Yeah, and
engagement.
then of course, as you open the process, and one thing about, I mean, this map is actually pretty easy and pretty fun to play with, and it's available free, so you just have to give the link to people, and they can play, you know, as much as they want with it, and have as much fun as they want. I was told that 10 years ago there. Greater Washington, I think was the name of, I think it might have been a publication or something, I'm not sure. Anyway, they had a tool where you could try out maps, and somebody drew vertical stripes down the map, 8 stripes across this diamond, to try to get some racial diversity, et cetera, through their map. So you can play with anything. You can just keep having fun making these designs and playing with the population data, et cetera, and get a feel for it. And even as the new data drops, to see that change and what you'd have to adjust could be really an interesting exercise. But my whole point of saying this is to be able to say to your constituents who might be getting their knickers in a twist over their parking allocation, is to give them this tool to play with themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. Questions maybe first from committee members and then the other commissioners on the line too. Feel free to just take your
Can we, Erica, do you mind taking down the map just so we can see each other?
Sure.
Everybody's seen the map enough. Great. That's.
I don't have any questions, but just really informative, very interesting. And it's just amazing the tools that kind of just the average citizen now has to be able to really play around with this and kind of see both the experience of how difficult it can be to balance out these districts, but also, everyone gets their chance at drawing them. So thank you.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think it's totally fascinating. And there's a question people also have is, should anybody who is an elected official, i.e. our council members, be that committee, that redistricting committee, right? That's a question to ask. I mean, this is set, and I think it's part of the DC code. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't read it or done the research to see, but I think that's pretty much predetermined. But around the country, you'll hear people talking about independent commissions for redistricting. And they would not have any elected officials, as I understand it, on those committees. But we have 10 years to figure out what we might do next, right? Yeah.
Other commissioners have questions?
There's something in the chat.
Yes, hopefully statehood will force that conversation a lot sooner than
Yeah. And maybe this is a good opportunity for me to, before I sign off and let you all continue with your meeting, that we also have really good presentations on statehood. And our approach on, obviously we support full rights for DC, beyond wholeheartedly. I mean, I don't know. But there's a two-prong approach we need on education for statehood. One is for us here in DC, because we have to talk about what, if there's any shape, a moth, any a reshaping of our local government, what happens with our council members, et cetera, what happens with our jail and prisons, that our prisoners now are all, those who have committed felonies are housed in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So there's a lot of changes, and we have lots of time. If we were to be granted statehood, if they called a vote, and hallelujah, we would get it. We have time. It's Admission Act that there's a transition time, and every other state has had several years, a few years to transition to statehood. But there's also an education component for those outside of DC, right? Because they don't know that most people don't even realize that we have no representation in Congress, that we have no votes in Congress. So that's another piece. And we're happy to do a presentation on statehood with, taking in mind who the audience is. So that's another thing.
Well, definitely keep that in mind. That might be, maybe we'll bring you back around the holidays and we can get everyone prepped to talk to relatives out of DC about it.
Yeah, that's a great, I like that, Celeste. Yeah, it's short. Yeah. It's not, it won't be nearly so heated, intense as it might have been in the last election cycle.
Yeah, maybe it'll be good timing. Questions from the public before we let Kathy and Erica enjoy the rest of their evening?
I had a question.
Yeah,
So I'm a resident of 5E01,
Mhm.
which is Edgewood, just below Catholic University. And Catholic University right now does not have a commissioner. GW has usually had commissioners. American University exists. And then, of course, just the recent news that the DC jail elected the first ANC commissioner. And so I guess your organization broadly, and like in the DC specific example, how do you think about, like, what are the trade-offs here? Because I'm a transplant to DC and I got involved locally, and I think it's really important that, like, we get people who come here from college knowledgeable and interested about DC government.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is there any best practice for this, or do we just sort of draw the SMD and somebody gets we just have SMDs for the campuses?
Yeah, because, if you had, that's a community of interest, right? So that's something to consider. And, I think personally that having the diversity within the ANC commissioners at your meetings, to have someone representing that university would be really terrific, because, otherwise, how do you know what's going on, in terms of, they would have a lot to contribute in terms of food services and rubbish pickup, all traffic patterns. I think they would have a lot to contribute. And I think your point is extraordinarily well taken, that we want folks who come to school here to stay here. They would bring so much to our district. So yeah. And the question often comes up with voter registration, also with the universities, right? Because, and again, this relates to statehood, all right? So this is like, we want to encourage them to register to vote here, but, depending on where they're from, I may not want to encourage them too much, in a sense, as long as they're registered to vote and will vote. It may be, dare I say, as important for them to vote in their home district. So yeah, it's a good question. In terms of redistricting, I would, and I think also there's a question on the census data. And I did a thing on the census. It was so long ago. Do you think I remember? I'm sorry, Gordon. I think they count where they're living at the time. So that population may well be very undercounted, those who are in DC, right?
And then my last question is kind of an operational one. So there's the committee of the 3 at-large council members, and they're supposed to have these public hearings. Is the map enshrined with like a 2-1 or 3-0 vote? Is that like they decide that's the map, and then as of that day, the new map is effective? Or is it, because like, not that I don't have a residential parking pass, so I don't really care, but like, do we have like a grace period where people have to go to the DMV and change it?
Oh, those are really good questions. I don't know. I know once the committee of 3 draws the map after input from everybody, the mayor signs off on it in January. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know more than that. How quickly will we all have to run? There's plenty of time. Don't worry. And I'm sure well, I shouldn't say I'm sure they have a system for it. That I can't. It's a bridge too far to say. For the time being, I'll say, well, as we get closer, we'll try to figure that one out. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And with everyone with COVID in the DMV being so backlogged with demand for appointments,
Correct.
it's just fresh in memory, all of these, like, we can't really enforce traffic laws or like parking enforcement because like we don't have enough DMV appointments and things like that.
Yeah. But like, I just got my new zone sticker in the mail. So that process seemed to work fine. And I'm guessing that, they'll think about that. I'm hoping they will think about that. And there's time. And of course they wouldn't enforce it. But I hope that we as citizens and residents of the district, look at this as more than the convenience of parking, where I know, I hope people didn't buy their homes or rent their apartments or move to a neighborhood because they knew they could park, where their kids take ballet lessons or whatever. But I don't know,
We
Thank you.
we do sometimes hear that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I actually, Megan, I saw her at the park a couple weeks ago. I forgot. I was on my way to the Supreme Court rally or something, for the People Act rally or something. But it came up about enforcement of the zone parking, right? That came up, that we're missing a lot of income pay for some of the by the neighborhood parking zone designation not being enforced. Anyway, that's totally off topic. Anyway, you guys have work to do, so we should let you go.
Not at all. Thank you both for joining so much. This has been super informative, really interesting. I'd love to have the slides you shared, and we'll
Sure.
share them out across our other mediums of communication. So anyone who wasn't on tonight can also see those, and in particular the map you shared as well. We'll make sure those are shared out. And please do let us know when you have the day of action and you're doing a training of the trainers, because we can share that out with the community as well.
Yeah, we actually did that. So this slide deck was used for a program within our league in March, I believe it was, or early April. And we had the day of action the last day at the very end of April. But that doesn't mean we can't do it again. And we can't say, let's look at ANC, or Ward 1 and do it. And you all have done a lot of, the walkabouts to report on sidewalk issues and things like that. But maybe, another walkabout each single member district, and you get a feel on the ground. I did it. It was good. And under, like, Walter Pierce Park is, a boundary, right? And I couldn't tell where the boundary was, like on the other side of the, like, and then you can't really walk there. It was, it was a hike. But, so all of that information for people who aren't as focused on that as all of you are is kind of interesting. So to lead a walk with folks to see in your single member district and begin to look at where, how many businesses there are versus residences, where are the other services, where are the schools and the firehouse and all of that in each single member district. Yeah, so, but
Yeah.
so we could do that walkabout, that scavenger hunt anytime, I'll help you with that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
that
that's
would
what
be
we walking around and looking at the map and sort of playing with it when it's all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, even for people to find to find the map for their single member district. Who, a normal person, not that you're abnormal, I didn't mean to imply, but, a regular citizen, not that, anyway.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Great, thank you
Again,
so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and
I'll send these materials on. Thanks so much.
thank you.
Yeah,
Enjoy the rest of your
good
evening.
night.
Okay. So the second item and the only other item on our agenda is the presentation on an art installation at the Line Hotel in Manly Park. And I think Monica is already on, so we just need to promote her.
She's coming up.
And we'll be excited to hear more. I saw some visuals of this and it looks pretty cool, but we're interested to learn more about it.
Hi all, do you see me? I am going to, hi, thanks for giving me some time to talk about this project. It's a proposal. Let me see if I can open my presentation and share the screen. Are you guys seeing my screen? I need to click share screen. Hang on a second, share screen. There we go. See it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Monica. I'm an artist and climate activist, and I've been doing a lot of work around climate justice in DC and in Bangladesh and around the world for the last 10 years, actually. I started, well, more than that, but the Storytelling with Saris project using saris, which is, sari is a garment that's worn in South Asia. That's been going on for about 10 years. My idea is to work with the public to create a new set of saris, which will be draped down from the Line Hotel along those columns. It's basically, it would be about 10 columns of long saris. And then also across the street at the Unity Park. Just a little bit about the project. I've been working with these. I'm from Bangladesh, from a small, my maternal ancestors are from a small island in the Bay of Bengal. And these are some of the women that I've been working with since 2012. There's a dozen women that I co-create saris with, and now people in DC also co-create saris with me and with these women. This is where the island is in the Bay of Bengal. It's called Boro Baishtia. The project team for this public art project would be me as a lead artist, and then the assistants would be the people of Washington, DC and the women of Katakali Village. I have really diverse public participants of all income levels. A lot of them come from Ward 8, actually. And the community partners would be the Admo Bid, you guys, the Line Hotel, Project Create in Anacostia, and the farm people, vendors at Unity Park. I actually went and talked to them last Saturday on the suggestion of, who suggested it? The Admo Bid chair, Kristen, I think that's her name. And they were totally into it. They were like, can you do it more than once? I don't know if I can do it more than once because it's a big endeavor. But anyway, I just wanted to show you. So last year, and the last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of these workshops on Zoom. I've actually been using public funds, some of the funds from the Public Art Project grant to grant people, give people stipends so they can actually have internet and have tablets. And I actually been teaching people to use Zoom. A lot of senior citizens, a lot of young people in DC actually don't have internet, don't have smartphones. It's really amazing. But anyway, I trained a bunch of them. We have this big team of people. This was the first Zoom sorry that we made. I actually had people give me feedback on the sorry, and I printed it based on what they said. That was back in March 2020. Yeah, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So the idea for this project was, after I've thought about, I actually spoke to, I guess your ANC chair when I had this project at DC Art Center, at the exterior of the DC Art Center. I actually asked him, he came by, and I asked Amir Irani, right? He came by and I asked him, what neighborhoods in ADMO actually need some art activation. And he suggested Unity Park and the Line Hotel. And so the Line Hotel is on board. So this is very exciting. And so is the market vendor in Unity Park. And I think the ADMO bid is quite interested in it too. We did an amazing project in May, which culminated at the end of May in front of the DC Art Center on the street. We had I don't know, must have been 1,000 people that came and saw the art installation. And we had 4 events. We had an opening night dedication with live poetry. We had another day of meet the artist and see projections on the DC Art Center and the saris. And then we had a poetry slam, and then a 4th day, a daytime sort of walking tours of the space. So my idea for this coming year, again, I would like to focus, I think, on poetry and spoken word, because we're going to be, I think, moving into a hybrid kind of environment in the fall. I'm not sure everyone's going to be comfortable meeting in person. It's going to get cold. And people, now that they've learned Zoom, I think it's going to be something that I should probably continue. So I'm thinking some of the workshops with the public, and again, they're open to the general public, will be on Zoom. And then depending on what's happening with COVID, my plan would be we do some of the poetry writing on themes of climate justice and also about food justice and food insecurity. I want to tie it into this farmers market idea, because we have the farmers market there. And then we would take some of these ideas and images and poems and then put them on saris, probably in the spring, and outdoor or small workshops that are in person. That's what I'm thinking. It's sort of in flux depending on what happens. If we get enough people vaccinated in DC and we don't have a surge, maybe we can do indoor workshops in the winter too. I just don't know. But I'm flexible, and I've actually trained a lot of people to be on Zoom. So, and then the idea would be to hang the saris. So probably I'll do this in the spring. I haven't confirmed the dates yet with the Line Hotel, but this year we did it in May, which was great. May is nice weather, right? It's also Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, so it ties in well with all that. So typically I do it for about 4 or 5 days. I put the saris up, I leave them up, rain or shine, and we don't do events if it's pouring, obviously, or thunderstorm. We have to watch the weather. And then we take them down like on a Monday. So usually we start on a Thursday with an opening and then have events through the weekend and then take them down on the Sunday night or the Monday. That's what I'm thinking. There was some interest, as I mentioned, from the Unity Park food vendors. They were like, can you do this over the Christmas season? We would love to see this happen more than once. I don't know if we'll get the money in time from the city to do it by Christmas, and it's probably too cold to really be out there installing this stuff for hours. It takes a long time. Probably gonna be too cold, but it's an idea. And then what I was thinking about for the public engagement would be actually tying it in to food sustainability, urban agriculture, some of these, and having some talks, and maybe and I would love to do a film screening in Unity Park. I was thinking it's kind of, we would have the saris. I'll show you. Let me just show you the image of what it would look like in Unity Park. Unity Park, what I'm thinking of is using the existing light pillars that are used for the string lights and making a horizontal band of saris along that sidewalk there, but not blocking the sidewalk in any way, making it quite high so people can duck under it. And on the other side toward the street, I would like to make, a parallel one So 2 rows of these saris. Now on the other side, there are light and signposts, and there are trees. So I don't know what DPR will say about having the saris just like lean on the trees. If they don't like that, then I can erect pillars, parallel to the tree, in the tree pit. If they don't want me to touch the trees or wrap it around the tree trunk, it's literally very, very light fabric. It's like gauzy fabric. And, it's no worse than the stuff that they're using to protect from the cicadas. But if they have any problem, then I'll work with a steel fabricator or wood fabricator to make some pillars, temporary pillars to hold it up. But that's what I'm thinking. It would be like this. And I measured it today. I've already started communicating with DCRA and DPR. They asked me for dimensions. I've measured it. So this would be about 52 feet long along the sidewalk here next to Unity Park. And I'll probably do 2 bands of saris horizontally. So it'll be like 8 feet wide on this pillar here. And then they will just be up for a few days. And then on the Line Hotel, I couldn't quite measure how high that is. It looks really high to me. It looks like the saris are 18 feet long. It looks like this is longer. So I may have to double them up. But anyway, and then the breadth of that frontage of the Line Hotel is about 50 feet. So that's what it would generally look like. And this is some images just want to share with you what it looked like at the DC Art Center last month in May. We also had sculptures. The way I hang them is very simple. I use it's simple, but it's beautiful. It's a cable that I hang with suspension springs, so it doesn't damage anything. It's super light. The saris weigh about 1 pound each. So my idea, I was going to call the project Passage, but then I was thinking after I met with the farmers market people, I thought I should really tie it in more to the food. So I'm thinking about now calling it Sustain, because that will link into certain things. One thing is this project of mine has been going for 10 years. So it's sort of the sustaining this project, but also sustainability in terms of food. And sustain and sustenance, it talks about food, right? So I think that would tie it into climate change. Climate change is having a real impact on agriculture, certainly even on local farmers. I know that the growing patterns have changed. The peach flowers come up at different times. So I would love to actually interview the farmers too, maybe, and get some of their feedback. But this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about, I've actually been working on a film, a short climate justice film about storytelling with saris and how farmers are impacted. And all the women that I showed you the picture of in Bangladesh, they're all farmers. They're all women farmers. They are rice and vegetable farmers. So I would love to actually interview our Licking Creek farmers and find out what, if any, impacts they're feeling, and maybe create a little short film tying in the Bangladesh women farmers with this area, Chesapeake Bay watershed farmers, and maybe screen that film. These are just ideas. I'm thinking about maybe screening that in Unity Park, and I think that'd be kind of fun. And one of the evenings. And then maybe when I talked to the people at the farm, they were like, "Oh, well, you should do some event on Saturday morning." So maybe I could do like a meditation or talk. Meditation/talk on the themes of food and urban gardening, do something like that on a Saturday morning too. So I'm definitely open to, if you guys have any ideas too, I'm definitely open to programming that would be that would be fun for people and bring people into that pocket where and then the other thing I was thinking about, I've often do soundscapes. When I did a project, I'll show you some of these pictures. This is some more pictures from Adams Morgan. We had so many people, it was fantastic. We had a lot of people from all over the city. I did a picture I did a project in 2019 in Anacostia. That one had a soundscape. So I'm thinking it might be nice to do a soundscape that's on at certain times, or it could be, the soundscape would have some of the spoken word poetry and like some of the songs from Bangladesh. And I'm thinking it could be, what I did in Anacostia is I would actually play it on speakers at night softly. But the other alternative would be to have, if we don't want that, we could have QR codes. People just listen to it and download it on their phones. We could also have some technology I'm looking into. They have these sound and voice activated little mini speakers that could be strategically placed. It's only for 5 days, mind you, this whole project, right? Which could be placed and they could be activated in some way. So I'm thinking about incorporating some sort of nice, beautiful soft sound element as well. And a few more images. This is what I did last year during the pandemic in Georgetown on the canal. And you can see the saris are huge. They're just about 18 feet. So I still don't know. I have to go get the exact measurements from the Line Hotel, how high their facade is. I'm thinking one sari might be actually good, but if not, if it's really 30 feet high as it looks to me, I may have to double them up to go up higher. So this is another image from Good Hope Road in Anacostia in 2019. We had 65 saris that wrapped 5 historic buildings. Here's some images from the workshops. The workshops are super popular, the Zoom workshops and the in-person workshops. And I provide a stipend to everyone. So everyone gets $15 an hour out of the DC Public Art Grant. They are my collaborators, they are my co-creators, and it really increases access. We don't realize, a lot of us, that a lot of people in DC never go to museums, never go to art galleries, never go to talks, and they can't afford it, you know. And so they have to take away from their work to do that. And so the small stipend allows them to pay for transportation, you know, to take a couple of hours off from whatever work they have to join. So we've had a lot of people join. A lot of senior citizens. This is a Project Create, a wonderful organization in Anacostia that I've been working with since 2018. This is a workshop I did at the Eaton Hotel a couple of years ago. I'll also look into doing workshops in the Admo Community Center in the Line Hotel. I've done them there before. I think the coordinator that I knew there before is gone, but they probably are opening up again. If it's not safe to do them inside, we can probably do them outside. This past year at the DC Art Center, I did outdoor workshops on the sidewalk, and that was really fun. These are the women, another picture of the women in Katakali village. They're amazing. They're on the front lines of climate change. They're facing so much difficulty, especially now with COVID as well. And so the grant will also pay these women some money to help, they will help print the wood blocks on the edges of the sari, the borders. So the saris will be partially printed in Bangladesh, then they'll come here. Usually I go there and I bring them and I work with them, then I bring them back on my airplane. Last year I wasn't able to go because of COVID, very complicated process of getting the saris back, but I got them back. And so then each sari actually has work on it and the hands on it of these women in Bangladesh and our community here in DC. So it's super exciting and they love it. They absolutely love it, working on the sari. Something about, you know, I didn't realize how much trauma and how much isolation people in DC go through in a normal year. And then with the pandemic stuff, it's just been magnified, right? There's been a lot of grief, a lot of anxiety, and it's been really very healing to have these. I did a workshop every month to have these workshops, and we formed like a little community. And people want it to happen again. And this is an image from an installation I did in Hawaii with the Smithsonian Asian Pacific Center. So funding and time frame, the DCCH grant is due July 16th, and I won't find out whether I got it until October 1. The project is officially supposed to start sometime no earlier than October 1, but usually the money doesn't come until December, so I'm not really able to start until, you know, December. Sometimes if I have enough money in my account, I'll start in November. So we'll see what happens with their funding. And then it has to be completed by next fall, September 22nd. And so, yeah, and my proposal would be to do it, not May 2023, sorry, May 2022. That's an error, 22. And so I would need to apply for the grant. It's quite a complicated process. I have to already have pre-approval or sort of permit review done by all the people involved. I have to have a signed agreement from the Line Hotel and any other site owners. And then I also have to have a letter from you all, from not you all, but from the whole ANC. You guys were fantastic last year. I presented at the Zoom meeting, and I got a letter. And I also have to have 25 community members in this area sign in support. And I think you guys also helped me get some of those, because it was so much easier when we had in-person meetings. I could literally bring my little petition board to the meeting and pass it around. But now it's complicated collecting signatures, but that's what has to be done. The other thing I wanted to mention is that my whole purpose is to be inclusive. So I really believe in multilingualism, anti-racism, anti-ageism, anti-ableism. And so all my work is in accessible spaces. I don't go anywhere. I don't do any work that requires stairs, that doesn't have metro accessibility. So, and I really believe in public art that's in the street, that people that don't go into galleries can enjoy. And so I also provide I'll provide Zoom trainings. I'll provide internet if needed. I'll provide tablets, all out of this, this grant, but also a lot of my time to train people. I also provide ASL. So I have a lot of deaf community members, a lot of former graduates of Gallaudet live in DC. As you know, there's a big deaf community. So I have a following of a couple of deaf blind artists who join my stuff. So it's very diverse, a lot of senior citizens, a lot of formerly homeless people, a lot of people in recovery, and a lot of, people of all walks of life that join. I've had a lot of federal people that have joined, federal workers. And so it's really open to everyone. But just wanted to make it clear that I really do try to, and I have a big following. I have like 200 people around DC that have been, that have sort of been part of my workshops, and you all are welcome to join too. So it's fun, and it also brings a lot of people from so I had huge numbers of people from Anacostia, Ward 8, Northeast, Ward 5 that came into Adams Morgan this past year in May for the event, and also for the workshops. A lot of them had not been to DC Art Center. Some of them went inside to see the gallery upstairs as well. We had a lot of people, I think, that frequented the restaurants and like saw that things were really happening. So it's good. It's also good for the local businesses. So that's it. And I have a website, and what's happening here? My email is gmail.com. But I'm happy to answer questions, and I would love any ideas that you have and any questions or concerns. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with Unity Park. I believe it's DPR, but when you look at it on the, when you plug it into the DC property finder, it does come up as federal. I think every park in DC is actually federal land. So I may need to also clear it with national parks. I don't know if you guys know that stuff. But I think that's it. That's all I had to say for now. The actual programming and stuff is something that can be obviously worked on. The main thing that needs to be applied for is the general concept and like what the physical imprint of the installation will be.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for presenting this. It's really neat to see the past projects you've done in DC too. We're lucky you're looking to do this in Morgan next. So it's super exciting. And it sounds like the most pressing question is the letter, right? And I just pulled up the letter we did last year. So it sounds like something very similar to that could work again for you.
Absolutely. We can just change the title and the description and the dates, and I can mark it up and send it to you. In terms of the I think the July 7th is the actual full ANC meeting, right?
Yeah, I wanted to flag that to you. It's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Just to be available as well for that, it might be good for you to do like a short 5 to 10 minute, or even just 5 minute overview of the project with that too.
I have to
have the letter today.
In fact, I think they want me to. I think I'm required to provide notice of it, and it needs to be so the public can comment. Okay. I'll keep it real short. I can make the proposal available. You can post it on your website, and then I can just go literally 2-3 minutes, whatever amount of time you have, available.
We can spare more than 2 or 3 minutes, I'm sure.
Okay.
I see Peter has his hand up.
Hi. Hi, Monica. Thanks for sharing that. That was great. So a couple things. One, in terms of signatures, we'll get you. We'll help. It's easy. And then two,
Wait, I didn't hear you said in terms of what? In terms
in
of?
terms of signatures, especially because I mean, I'm
yeah,
happy to get some of us just to go out to even the
Thank
farmers.
you.
Get
You
signatures.
helped me last year. That was great.
Yeah, so that should be easy. Hopefully it'll be easier than last year. But the other thing, I'm just kind of out of curiosity, I know a lot of your projects in DC have been on private property. Have you had much experience on public property, parks or otherwise before?
So yeah, so my experience last year was this was public property. This was the
Okay.
this is National Park. This is the C&O Canal Historic Park, and so
Yeah.
I did get a National Park Service permit for that. And
Okay.
yeah, so that was but I haven't done things on so here the Line Hotel, I guess, is private property.
Mhm.
And then the park is public. So I have dealt with National Park Service, but I haven't
DC.
no, I have not. So I've emailed them though. I've already emailed DPR. So the DC Commission on the Arts has provided a list of people that they want us to contact for these grants. So they gave me a contact, and I've CC'd the DC Commission public art person. So hopefully they will help facilitate. It's a new procedure they're doing. So, and I also have the emails that you gave me, Peter, of your contacts at DPR. So yeah, I'm not really sure what the process is, but I've started it. so
No, you're doing great. And I mean, our committee especially knows that one, it's finding out what the process is, and then two, finding out how it actually works.
right.
So we're happy to help. I don't want to speak, too much out of my lane, but I'm pretty sure we'll all be happy to help basically annoy the people who we need to get responses, because that's often what it comes down to. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you're taking it proactive and just getting on this far in advance, because time can go quickly, unfortunately.
Oh, we don't have a lot of time. No, I know. So I was waiting because I was waiting to hear from the Line Hotel, but I did hear back from them, by the way. So Sophie Pinochet emailed me back a couple of days ago and said
Awesome, that's great.
they're good to go. And so I think that's great. So what I might do, Peter, because I know you wanted to be CC'd, I already emailed the DPR person that the city wants me to get in touch with. I can forward that email and I don't know that I don't want to jump over people's heads before they respond. Maybe I'll wait a couple of days, and
Sounds
then
good.
I don't want to cause confusion by having multiple threads. But if I don't hear back, I can forward that email to the names that you gave me, including Nadeau's office, and then see where it goes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because yeah, I am going to need at least correspondence from them to show that they're generally on board to just to even apply for this grant. So
That sounds great. I mean, you got a good chair here in Celeste, so we'll be good.
Yeah, if we can, do CCS, particularly if you need that before to submit it with the application. Because I was going to say we could put something in the letter that says something like, we hope DPR will cooperate as, and be
Good
as
idea.
possible, but that might not be in time to help.
Yeah, that is my concern, yes, is how long that process will take. What I was told by the BC Commission on the Arts is that if it's city property, then all you have to do is actually apply for the permit. And then if it's approved, then that counts as a site agreement. That's what she told me when I discussed the matter with them, but I'm not really sure what happens with a park, And because when I'm looking at it when I plug it into the, the DC website for looking at properties, it shows up as federal park. And every single park in DC shows up as a federal park. And my understanding is that because we are a federal, right? We are the District of Columbia, a special federal enclave, that all the public green areas are actually also federal park. That's my understanding. Because every single park I look at has that. It comes up as owned by the US. It's so weird. I think they share authority in some way, but maybe they've ceded permitting authority to DPR for these small parks. I mean, it would be crazy for them to be involved in every single park.
Yeah, that's pretty wacky. I don't know what's going on with the map, but I would go by what the commission says. And Brian on here mentioned earlier that it is definitely DPR. So
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll look through. I go on the maps a lot. Yeah, geography is the one area I have expertise in, and sometimes this not necessarily a question of who actually controls it, but just the kind of the software platform and how they display information. I'll double check
Well,
just so
maybe
you have it all.
that's true. Maybe
And
that's
it varies by park as well. Like Kalorama Park, for example, is technically a historical site, so it is technically, and Walter Pierce as well has some sort of partial federal aspect, but then they kind of defer some of the responsibilities to different agencies within the city, and even that gets kind of dispersed. It's messy.
yeah. When it's crazy. So this was difficult too, when I did this stuff in Georgetown, because that area too, certain parts of it are federal and certain parts of it are city. So we had to be very careful, in fact, to do we did projections and we had some tables set up. We had to put our footprint only on federal property because we only had a federal permit. We didn't want to have to deal with multiple permits. So we did it only on private property and only on federal property, just to make it like, to minimize the regulatory morass. So, but because I had to actually install it from the other side, see that wall there on the other side where Dean and DeLuca is, that's private property. So I got a site agreement from, I'm blanking on the name, from Jamestown, the big developer owner of all that property over there.
Mhm.
So I had to, work with their lawyers to get a site agreement with them to enter their property and hang the saris. But then I also had a National Park Service permit. But I know how to get those now. I know how to do all that. So I think as long as I can get the city's basic sign off, I think if there are federal permits involved, we can get those later. Because they don't give those ahead of time. You kind of have to wait like 30 days before.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it at the full meeting, but having the farmers market on board probably can't hurt. It probably could help to be able to say, hey, you've already gone through the city, you've gone through this process already with one entity, and they're on our side for this. We're working together, so hopefully we'll see.
Idea, Peter. I got an email for one of the women who works at the farmers market, and I'll see if they'll sign a little letter. I can just prepare something for them.
Yeah, Esther's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I met Esther, and then I met someone else. I don't have Esther's email, but I have another person's email, and I'll see if I can just swing by there and maybe get them to sign a little letter. Yeah, so they seem super excited. They would like me to do it more, but I don't know. I think Christmas time is hard to do it. It's cold, right? It's like cold to be installing a big art project outdoors in the. I could do something small though. I could, if they want me to, I could do like a little outdoor something, a little short workshop or something on a Saturday to get people excited. I don't know. I'm happy to do anything to help. So, but I don't know if they go till December. I'm not sure if they.
They open up temporarily for trees in December. Yeah.
Oh, well, that would be fun. I mean, depending on the weather, we can find a good Saturday that's not too nippy. We could set up and do something. I'm happy to, to help our local farmers market. I've been going to them I've been here for 20 years. I've been going to them, their farmers stand for a long, long time. So I'm happy to help them anyway.
That's awesome. I had maybe one or two more questions, but I know Brian's had his hand up. Brian, did you want to ask anything?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that Unity Park is definitely a DPR park. There's no federal parkland inside the bid. So that's not an issue. We helped the farmers market get their permit set up, and so no feds to deal with. Which I don't know, feds might be easier than DC sometimes, but yeah, just DPR to deal with that.
Just having one less agency is helpful.
Yeah.
I have to go through DCRA, DDOT, and a lot of different people. So.
Yeah, and then the farmers market usually goes until the Saturday before Christmas, and then they're done until June.
Until June. So they used to open up in March. So if I did my thing in May, then they won't be actually open yet, right? So I could.
Yeah, and in theory, you'd need to maybe double check with Esther, but yeah, that's what they did this year, and I think they've been doing that the last few years.
Oh, okay. Well, then I could do it in June. That's fine. June is also a nice time, and good weather. We do it like early June. Maybe we do it around the same time as they open up. That's a good idea. So I will make note of that. So we should. So maybe we could do something also in December when they do their trees. I could try and organize a little event to sort of, maybe a little workshop or something, even if not a full-blown installation to help them, since they've asked for that. They were like, please do something in December. So thank you, Brian. That's very helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think you talked to my colleague Kristen with the
Yes.
bid. So yeah, and we're happy to help, and we're always interested in activating the parks and having more art in the neighborhood.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, I'm sure whatever you're receiving from the Arts Commission is far more substantial than what we could do, but the ANC does also make small grants. I don't have the guidelines in front of me. They can be kind of tricky to navigate with the city, but and a nonprofit partner would have to, someone with a 501c3 would have to receive it on your behalf. But if that's of interest, we can send that information along to you, and you can.
Sure, I did see.
There's no rush for that. You could do that in a month.
Yeah, I did see that you you have those grants. Well, I'll see. So yeah, I mean, if I do get this public art grant, it's a substantial grant. So I probably wouldn't I would probably let other people apply for the smaller things. But if I don't get it, and maybe they'll decide they don't, then I'll plan to do something else. Maybe I could still do some workshops or some smaller things, so that would be a good thing to have in mind to apply for. Thank you so much for letting me know about that.
Of course. Ben or Peter, other questions or comments? No?
I'm good.
Okay. Anything else from other attendees? Awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing all of this. Really cool presentation. Really excited to hear what comes next. And we'll have to do the formal letter and the vote on it at the meeting in 2 weeks. But I think everyone here is excited to have the opportunity to support this. So we'll look forward to sharing this, sharing information about this project with the public. And if you don't mind sharing these slides, we'll
I will send you the slides. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll just update them and fix a couple of typos I just saw, and I'll send them to you.
Yeah, because we can share that out with information from this meeting, just so if you're comfortable having that shared,
absolutely.
then that'll start getting shared with the public. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then please do add me to your, I think you already have me on the agenda for the 7th probably, but please do put me on the agenda. And I would love a letter from the Business Improvement District, Brian. That would actually probably be helpful also to have just.
Yeah, we should be able to do that. If you can, I know you have Kristen's email, and I'm probably on those emails too. But if you could just send us a note and let us know what you need.
Yeah,
we can probably take care of that.
I'll do that in early July.
Okay.
Once I get feedback from the Line Hotel about dates and things like that, so we can have it a little bit more clear. But I think for the letter, we can just say it will happen in spring 2022. Doesn't have to be pinned down exactly. But thank you. That would be super helpful.
Sure.
Terrific. Well, great. Thank you again, and we'll look forward to having you with us again in a couple of weeks.
Thank
and
you.
We'll be in touch before then on the where you are on the agenda and such.
Thank you so much. I will, and I'll definitely email you all and keep you up to date if there's but we'll see each other in 2 weeks anyway. We'll have a full, and by then, if there's any update, I'll include that in my presentation. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
Great. That's it for our agenda for the evening then.
Nice meeting.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good night, everyone.